Russia's invasion and occupation of Ukraine's Crimean Peninsula and eastern territories is in line and in accordance with international law, as the UN welcomes members of the Donetsk and Luhansk People's Republics. And Ukraine refused to honor World War II veterans with medals, turning the country even more Nazi. Yeah, none of that makes sense because it's just not true. Welcome to StopFake, the place where we break down Russian disinformation about Ukraine and a little more. So let's get to it. Russian media reacted with a squall of criticism to the United Nations General Assembly adopting a resolution on Crimea back in December of 2020, accusing the UN of Russophobia and calling the resolution absurd and false. The resolution's call for Russia to leave Ukraine's occupied territories was answered with accusations of Western anti-Russian sentiments and mendacious claims that in all matters pertaining to Crimea, Russia is, quote-unquote, guided by the norms of international law and within the framework of its international obligations. And Russian media concluded that the UN resolutions about Crimea, which Ukraine actively advocates every year, are supported by fewer and fewer UN member states. So why did Russian media dive into this tirade? Well, Russian officials and several state-financed outlets were outraged by the UN resolution entitled Problem of the Militarization of the Autonomous Republic of Crimea, which was adopted back on December the 7th. 36 countries supported Ukraine in passing the resolution, including European Union countries and the United States, making Russian claims that increasingly fewer countries are supporting resolutions on Crimea and the UN is patently false. In fact, in 2020, the same number of countries supported it as in 2019, 63 in total. However, support for Russia in battling these resolutions is waning, given that only 17 countries voted against the resolution in 2020, whereas 19 countries supported Russia in 2019. And the list of those who voted against the UN's Crimean resolution is the new Axis gallery of Russophilia. Russia, of course, Armenia, Belarus, Cambodia, China, Cuba, North Korea, Iran, Kyrgyzstan, Laos, Myanmar, Nicaragua, Serbia, Sudan, Venezuela, and Zimbabwe. Russian media assertions that the Kremlin's policies in occupied Crimea are guided by the norms of international law is a laughable slice of misinformation that Moscow has been actively promoting since 2014. Official UN resolutions have been calling Russia the occupying power for some time. And last year's resolution once again calls Russia the occupying power, and also calls the occupation and annexation of Crimea illegal and in violation of international law, and lists at least 7 UN treaties and documents that Russia violated in invading and grabbing Ukrainian territory. Russia's occupation of Crimea does not deprive Ukraine of the right to navigation in its inland seas. This provision is part of the UN resolution, paragraphs 13 to 16, calling on the Russian Federation to refrain from impeding the lawful exercise of navigational rights and freedoms exercised in accordance with applicable international law, including provision of the 1982 United Nations Convention on the Law of the Sea in the Black Sea, the Azov Sea, and the Kerch Strait. Now, there's a difference between the 2020 UN resolution and previous resolutions on Crimea. The new resolution asserts that Russia's occupation of Crimea is damaging the architecture of international security and also violates a number of international arms control treaties, noting that Russia's control over nuclear weapons storage facilities in Crimea may pose a threat to regional stability. For the first time, the resolution mentions the illegal construction of warships in Crimea, the construction of the Tavrida Highway, and the bridge across the Kerch Strait as instruments used to continue the militarization of Crimea, effectively turning the peninsula into a Russian military base. Russian media featured several stories back in December claiming that representatives of the self-proclaimed Donetsk and Luhansk People's Republics, those fake republics created and supported by Russia in eastern Ukraine, allegedly spoke at a meeting of the United Nations Security Council. Half the world heard their independent voice, as the fake story goes, whereas Ukraine continues not wanting to hear the real voices of Donbass and completely neglected the Security Council meeting. Now, on December the 2nd, Russia did initiate a meeting about the Ukrainian territories they occupied in the Donetsk and Luhansk regions. However, the meeting was a virtual event and had no political significance or weight. The video conference was held within the framework of the ARIA formula of informal consultations that are non-binding and have no legal status. ARIA formula meetings are held in a conference room and not in the Security Council chambers, and those invited are not obliged to attend. Minutes are not kept at these meetings, so no reports reports are drawn up, and most importantly, no decisions are made. And video and photo recordings are not published on the official UN website. Representatives of Russia's proxy republics who are under EU and US sanctions were able to appear during the Russian-sponsored meeting because the event was online. Ukraine refused to participate in the meeting, stressing that it was yet another Russian attempt to legitimize the militants by taking advantage of the online format dictated by the COVID pandemic. Ukraine's Ministry of Foreign Affairs called the event a Kremlin PR action designed to manipulate international platforms and disseminate propaganda. The United States, Great Britain, Estonia, France, Germany, and Belgium also refused to take part in the Russian meeting. A joint statement issued by the United States, the UK, and Estonia emphasized that they do not support the Kremlin's attempts to legalize the occupation of Ukrainian territories. The joint statement reads, quote, "This meeting was a transparent attempt to present a false and misleading narrative regarding the conflict in eastern Ukraine. We strongly reject Russia's premise that it is acting as a mediator within an internal conflict. Russia is an active participant that trains, arms, and leads armed formations in areas outside of Ukrainian government control, supplementing these proxy forces with military personnel and equipment. It instigated and continues to fuel a conflict which has resulted in approximately 13,000 deaths, appalling human rights abuses, and a deteriorating humanitarian situation for the civilian population." Russian pro-Kremlin media are once again accusing Kyiv of resorting to propaganda and Ukraine of distorting historical truth. According to RT, formerly Russia Today, Ukraine allegedly is against honoring World War II veterans with medals on the 75th anniversary of the end of the war. But Ukrainian veterans did receive commemorative medals on the 75th anniversary of victory over Nazism issued by Ukraine's Veterans Affairs Ministry. What people objected to were medals issued by Russian President Vladimir Putin. According to RT, a Ukrainian veteran was to receive a commemorative medal issued on the orders of Russian President Vladimir Putin to mark the defeat of Nazi Germany. The medal, according to RT, was confiscated, which shows how Ukraine is falsifying history and openly honoring members of Nazi organizations such as the Ukrainian Insurgent Army, a formation that was condemned by the Nuremberg trial. RT claims that, quote, "According to experts in the battle against the Soviet past, Ukraine has embarked on the path of adopting fascist ideology." But in all 42 volumes of the Nuremberg trial proceedings, there is absolutely no condemnation of the Ukrainian Insurgent Army. In Novomoskovsk, a city in the Dnipropetrovsk Oblast, the local veterans organization handed out 15 Russian-issued medals. One family was outraged by this and intended to report the incident to Ukraine's security service, demanding an investigation. The Dnipropetrovsk branch of Ukraine's National Veterans Organization condemned the entire affair, criticizing those who issued the medals and those who accepted them. Nothing similar has been reported anywhere else in Ukraine. Back in the spring of 2020, Ukrainian World War II veterans were mailed commemorative medals for military merit on the victory over Nazism that were issued by Ukraine's Ministry of Veterans Affairs. More than 200 veterans received their medals, and various regional news sites reported and covered the story. RT's coverage of this issue is just another example of Russian disinformation. That's it for this week. Be vigilant and be on the lookout for fakes. Remember, washing your hands, wearing a mask, and social distancing will protect you from the coronavirus, but critical thinking will protect you from Russian disinformation. And if you spot any disinformation about Ukraine, send it to us for a truth autopsy. I'm Marko Suprun, and this is Stop Fake. Thanks for watching.